on this edition of Southern Newsweek. Telford College welcomes this year's new students to campus. A vigil is to be held for a miniature horse who died after being stabbed. And a Dunedin woman gives the BBC World News an interview about New Zealand's threatened seagulls. Kia ora, I'm Sophie Morris. It was business as usual at Telford College this week as this year's contingent of students were welcomed onto the campus. But the welcome had more significance than previous years as it almost didn't happen following the Southland Agricultural School being threatened with closure.
Welcome back to Telford. After several weeks of delay, students have been invited to start classes at the Agricultural College near Balclutha. 2 weeks ago it was announced that the Southern Institute of Technology will take over Telford after a month of uncertainty for both staff and students at the facility. SIT Chief Executive Penny Simmons says it's a positive beginning for Telford's academic year.
I think it's really important to celebrate the start of the year. It's been a delayed start, and of course there's been a lot of uncertainty for a number of weeks, and so it's really important that we make a big statement to the students that they're really welcome here and we're pleased to be opening.
But the delays have caused a drop in the school's roll.
Probably around about the 50 mark. We'd have liked 70, and there were initially 70, but obviously some people with the uncertainty went elsewhere.
New Zealand First MP and former sheep farmer Mark Patterson says Telford should keep on doing what it does best.
We've got a facility here that's been turning out high quality graduates for half a century, so it makes no sense that we're not utilising it to the absolute maximum.
With the recent announcement of a merger for all New Zealand's polytechs and technology institutes, Telford has a 1-year reprieve, and it remains unclear where they'll be next year. Mayor Brian Cadogan says he wants to see how the final deal will shape up.
And let's face it, if we've learnt nothing out of the Lincoln Taratahi debacle, it's that changes have got to be made. There's no way that a beautiful institution like this can go through it again. Or it's been happening right across New Zealand, so there has to be time for change. Obviously the devil will be in the detail. I'm not going to go in there swinging at the moment. I want to see what that detail is, and let's give them a chance to fix something that's obviously broken.
This year's syllabus remains the same as before, with certificates in agriculture and equine, a diploma for rural veterinary technicians, and a Massey diploma in agriculture. In Balclutha, for the South Today.
Moving to a new city is never easy, but the things that make you nervous about leaving home should also excite you. That's one of the messages given to first-year university students at this year's convocation ceremony, where students were welcomed to the university and to the city.
Imagine what you could achieve. Imagine what you could achieve.
Imagine what you could achieve. First-year students welcomed to Otago at last night's convocation ceremony by local dignitaries, including Dunedin Mayor Dave Cole.
It's about taking your place in a culturally and socially rich and supportive community with sporting and recreational facilities, galleries, theatres, museums and events that are the envy of much larger cities.
This year's Student Association President James Heath says the next few years can be confidence building.
You're probably all bloody nervous right now. I was, my mates were, though they would never admit it at the time. About 3 years ago I was sitting somewhere there in the front with one of my best mates to my left, in those little plastic seats.
Vice-Chancellor Professor Harleen Hayne urges students to create great memories and choose their friends wisely.
Over the next few years, I challenge you to choose your friends very carefully. Pick people who will make you a better version of yourself. Friends that you can laugh with, you can cry with, friends that you can trust to have your back and keep you safe, friends who will accept you just the way you are, but at the same time will challenge you to push yourself to achieve great things.
University lectures aren't set to start until next Monday, but academic departments are open this week to give course advice to students. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
Police visited the Waitati paddock where a miniature horse called Star was stabbed 41 times by an assailant who remains at large. A climate of fear and sadness prevails in the small seaside community near Dunedin as some residents discuss moving away. A word of warning, the story contains distressing content.
Holding a vigil for slain miniature horse Star in the Waitati field he called home. Yesterday, detectives and a police photographer were shown around the paddock at the corner of Brown and Pitt Streets by Star's owner, Mandy Mayhem Bullock. She says detectives removed a bloody piece of rope from her home, and she and her husband have begun their own inquiries, scouring the paddock with a metal detector in search of a weapon. A shrine has popped up beside Star's paddock, featuring a sign reading RIP Star, and it's hoped young children walking home from school will take comfort in the floral display. Star was buried at a property up the hill on Tuesday under an apple tree, as his nickname was Applejack. A veterinarian initially hoped Star would survive, but the horse died the night after the attack after a wound punctured his bowel. A candlelit vigil in Waitati is set for 7:30 p.m. this Sunday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A leading Otago University researcher has spoken out about New Zealand's high rates of drowning. Professor Chris Button says only about a quarter of our primary schools offer the recommended minimum amount of swimming instruction, despite having one of the world's highest drowning rates.
Swimming in the surf at Dunedin's Brighton Beach, these youngsters learning skills to help them avoid drowning. Otago University's Professor Chris Button says most drownings are in open water, but basic aquatic skills are typically taught in swimming pools. He says it's misleading to assume learning to swim in pools will help children avoid drowning. Instead, Professor Button launched a study to teach children basic survival skills in places like beaches, harbours and rivers. 120 primary school-aged children from Dunedin recently took part in a 3-day water safety program. Tests showed the youngsters increased their competency from below 50% to around 80% after the 3-day course. Parents and experts are full of praise for the program, which could help reduce the current rate of around 80 preventable drownings a year. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A Dunedin woman has been interviewed by BBC World News about New Zealand's threatened and unpopular red-billed seagulls. Otago Peninsula Trust Marketing Manager Sophie Barker says the gulls are viewed negatively by too many people.
Waiting to speak on the BBC about seagulls, Sophie Barker from the Otago Peninsula Trust now has the attention of the world regarding these increasingly endangered seabirds.
There was actually an article in The Guardian about how endangered the seagulls were here in New Zealand, and the BBC's picked it up, so they're interviewing me today about misunderstood seagulls and why we formed the Seagull Appreciation Society.
According to Barker, most people have the wrong idea about birds such as the red-billed gull, the most common of the 3 species found around New Zealand.
Seagulls are very misunderstood birds. I think that people see them stealing their food, pooing on their cars, etc., and don't quite understand how endangered they are, and that they're actually a barometer of what's going on in the world.
She says their populations are plummeting, partially due to land developments on former nesting areas and the depletion of natural food resources for seabirds.
The seagulls are becoming more and more endangered. Their population's been plummeting. That's because there's a lot of overfishing, there's a lot of pests which are eating the chicks, etc., etc., and also the places to live, safe nesting places.
Taiaroa Head not only provides a pest-free sanctuary for albatrosses, but also other seabirds, such as the seagull.
So we're very lucky out at Taiaroa Head with Kura, is that we actually have one of the only colonies not in decline where the chicks are safe to breed.
Barker says red-billed gulls are important to the country's biodiversity and our appreciation for the world we live in. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. Baby Draco Kinley is soon to go home after spending his first year in hospital. And the Central Otago AMP show is held on Omaka Domain. Welcome back. Baby Draco Kinley is soon to go home for the first time. A very big step for a child who's lived in the children's ward at Dunedin Hospital his whole life. Last February, Annalie Kinley gave birth to Draco at just 26 weeks gestation, almost 14 weeks premature.
Making plans to go home after spending the first year of his life in hospital, Draco Kinley has made amazing progress since being born over 3 months early.
After they seen how bad his lungs were, he was given 8 weeks to live, and he's surprised us since then.
Weighing just 900 grams at birth, young Draco has faced many major challenges.
His main issues are his lungs and his heart. So his heart, he's got pulmonary hypertension, he's got 2 holes in his heart, a PDA and an ASD. He's got numerous enlarged heart valves. His right side of his heart's a lot bigger than the left. He's got his chronic lung disease and bronchomalacia in the left lung. His left lung's half the size of his right lung, and he's got a hernia in his diaphragm.
The first time she held Draco, she was nervous because she thought he might need CPR. At other times, Draco has needed emergency help.
He stopped breathing. First, his lips started to go blue, then his eyes rolled into the back of his head. His body went limp and lifeless. I pressed the emergency bell, the nurses were running in. He just wasn't breathing. His oxygen just went lower and lower and lower. I stopped looking when it was in about the 20s. And yeah, they had to bring him back 3 times, and it took 45 minutes to get him stable.
There are still plenty of anxious times ahead for the family, with major surgeries likely in the next few years.
He's got a couple heart operations coming up in Starship. At 5 or 6 years old, they'll look into a transplant on his heart and lungs. So
the family's been told they'll probably be discharged from Dunedin Hospital around the end of the month. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
An Albertown resident is bringing the joy of dance to the lakes. Susa Jefferson has opened her house to help grow the art of tango dancing in the Wanaka community.
Breaking down social barriers through dance is Susa Jefferson of Albertown. Her love of tango began after being introduced to the Argentine dance form 4 years ago.
We had a couple of teachers in town who decided to set up some lessons, and I've always wanted to learn to partner dance. I've never done any partner dancing before. And they said, it's going to be tango. And I said, what's tango? So they did a little demonstration and played some music. I went, okay, let's give that a go, and been hooked ever since.
As part of her love of dance, Ms. Jefferson has opened up her home to encourage others to enjoy tango.
Every Wednesday night there's a practica. I have an outdoor dance floor and an indoor dance floor at my house. It's just a small group of people at the moment. We're always trying to get new people to come along, but unfortunately people are quite afraid of dancing, even though it's one of these things that all over the world, in every single culture, everybody dances, everybody has music, right? But it seems that people are a little bit afraid of doing that. The other thing is people think you need to come along as a partner, but most people come along not in partners. They come alone, and we all mix up dancing together. You don't just come along and dance with your partner. So there's a misconception there. Some people don't understand what tango is. You say tango and they think flamenco, or they might think salsa, and they don't actually know what tango is. And it's not until they see it they go, oh wow, that's quite something.
Simon Henderson for the South Today.
A group of highly respected astronomers converged on the mid-Canterbury town of Staveley last week. They were taking part in a series of events which have attracted speakers from around the world.
Under the Milky Way tonight. 2 of New Zealand's leading lights in the field of astronomy taking part in the recent Stardate Staveley Gathering in Canterbury. Sam Lesky and Haratina Mogasanu say there's an interesting shape at the centre of our galaxy, although there's debate as to what the shape looks like.
Wow, because at the galactic centre there's a patch of the sky. If you're on a very dark night, you'll see the Milky Way stretching out across the sky, and there's a little patch there that looks quite a lot like a kiwi.
Yep.
And you know the story of it.
Yeah, and we knew about this for a very long time, about this dark patch at the center of our galaxy. But in Europe, we call it the Dark Horse.
Haratina Mogasanu has travelled the globe looking into the heavens and rates astronomy in New Zealand very highly.
You just have to trust me because I'm from the Northern Hemisphere, and here is the best place on Earth. Here is the right way up.
She's based in Europe at times and spent some time in Utah preparing for the possibility of going where no one has gone before.
Yeah, I've been to Utah 3 times to train for Mars missions and contribute to the general knowledge of the world of what would be like to train for Mars. Like, we actually were sent there to make many mistakes as we could, so that people who will really go to Mars won't have to. So we were the guinea pigs, which was very nice because they got us to be part of these amazing programs that are actually really contributing to the science of going to Mars.
At Staveley, the pair gave a presentation about the synergies in space with the 250th anniversary of Captain James Cook's voyage, a connection between astronomy and New Zealand which continues to the present day. In Staveley, the South Today.
Omacau's Domain was a popular destination when the Central Otago A&P show returned last weekend. More than 2,000 people attended the show and were treated to a range of stalls, activities and displays.
Pipers, percussion, wood chopping and big tractors. Just some of the attractions on offer at the Central Otago A&P show. People flocked from far and wide to enjoy the various aspects of the show, one of many in the area in the coming weeks. Royal Agricultural Society of New Zealand President Jeff Smith says Central's show went well.
The show today has been a brilliant show. We've been very lucky with the weather. Great turnout of people and an excellent display of livestock.
Show goers were also treated to displays and activities, including a fashion parade, shearing and some furious wood chopping action.
Seriously, Brock, he's taken that off and probably give him a big hand, fellas. That was a top cut by Brad Packer. He just voted through that one there. Bobby Dowling going pretty good in the back row there, watching him hitting it hard. Adam Finlay having a go at him there.
But being an agricultural show, the day is mostly about animals.
Impressive showing of sheep, and it was great to see the family, the Patterson family, taking a clean sweep this time with fleece and with sheep, the supreme sheep of the show.
Among the displays and stalls was a poultry section, and these ladies with some appetising treats.
Really, I think it's all come together with a great atmosphere and a great example of what A&P shows in rural communities are all about.
The A&P show circuit is set to continue in Roxburgh this weekend and in Wanaka early next month. In Central, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. Hundreds gather for a memorial surf at Kakanui in remembrance of 2 brothers. And one of Dunedin's op shops features a living mannequin. Welcome back. Around 200 people gathered at Campbell's Bay in Kakanui for a memorial for 2 brothers who died there last week. A rahui has been placed on the Kakanui coast in North Otago for 2 weeks to mark respect for the families and acknowledge the deaths of Kareta Tatana and Wharerika Popata.
A much more tranquil scene at Campbell's Bay in Kakanui yesterday than the one which took the lives of 2 brothers here last week. Around 200 people gathering at the site to pay tribute to the men who lost their lives gathering seafood in heavy seas. A statement from the family read at the beach expressing their love for those who came to remember the brothers.
Our whānau would love to extend the most unconditional love to those who have taken part today to honour the lives of our men and their families that were left behind.
Members of the community assisted emergency services in the search for the brothers last Tuesday after they were seen struggling in the water. One of the men was found dead by a rescue helicopter, the other by a surfer who helped get the victim onto a boat so he could be taken back to shore.
We also would love to acknowledge those who took part in the rescue efforts and the return of our 2 young men. Without any of these efforts, none of this would have given our family the closure and comfort of knowing that we can take our boys home when they were home.
Waitaki Boys High School pupils performed a haka on the beach. Then around 30 surfers made their way out to sea in a memorial paddle out to remember the men in Oamaru, the South today.
A couple of rare pieces of Southland's rail history have a new home in Dunedin. A 1967 Mitsubishi locomotive and an 1886 guards van have been trucked from a storage shed in Wairio near Nightcaps to Ocean Beach Railway.
Back on track. A locomotive which has been sitting in a shed away for 30 years is about to be lovingly restored by members of Dunedin's Ocean Beach Railway.
It was ordered in 1967 from Mitsubishi in Japan and arrived to be put into service in 1968 with the Ojai Railway Board, finished in about 1990. And its last day it was finished, it was basically driven into the shed and left there until yesterday.
Ocean Beach Railway's General Manager Mike Kilsby says the rail vehicles are owned by the Southland District Council, but the railway has a long-term lease on them so they can be restored.
It's been sitting in a shed, unloved.
Kilsby says only 2 locomotives were bought by the Ojai Railway Board and the other ones in Wellington. He says it'll take about a year and a half to get the working pieces of history back to fully functioning.
18 months, give us 18 months. Maybe 18 months, 2 years, and it should be running on the railway.
Transporting the 2 rail vehicles from Wairio took a bit of planning and clever thinking, and he's thankful to the contractor who agreed to collect and deliver them.
Yeah, there's not too many people around that can move locomotives, especially when you ring them up and say where it is. When you tell them where it is, they didn't want to know. It wasn't just so we could go along and pick it up with a crane. It took some quite major logistics to sort of work everything out to get it up here. Wellington's Transport's done a marvellous job.
He says apart from the bird waste which piled up over 30 years, the locomotive was in storage and is in mint condition. In Dunedin, the South Today.
2 veteran shearers demonstrated various techniques to pupils at Tynwald School recently. Shearing 1 sheep each, the 2 men provided a sample of what was on offer at last weekend's Share for Life fundraiser in Hinds.
Tynwald school pupils getting a close-up look at sheep being shorn. Veteran shearers Sean Burgess and Brian Baldy Graham giving a sneak peek at what next Saturday's Share for Life fundraiser will be like. Demonstrating both blade and machine shearing styles, Peter Livingston says it's a chance for the children to learn something new.
As a school, it was a great opportunity for our children to learn, maybe ask some questions, see what it is actually like for a sheep to get a haircut, because a lot of them say that they've seen it, but I think the reality is that they haven't been inside a shearing shed or been around the animals that much.
If they feel that they're under control, then they're quite happy to sit still for you, but if they feel they can get up, they'll try to get up and run away.
Saturday's fundraiser has come out of a desire to help various cancer charities.
Share for Life is a campaign to raise money for breast cancer, prostate cancer and the local Cancer Society support group. It's put together by a group of shearers who wanted to have a weekend where they would all come together as mates, share some sheep and then donate any money that they made from it to these cancer societies.
He says the community has been instrumental in helping the event grow to where it is now.
So many local companies, like our trucking companies, our livestock companies, our rural companies, businesses in town, all willing to support a fundraising event of this magnitude. Probably because we're going to have some huge names in shearing in the shearing world come to this event and share.
Okay, so who's ever been to the barbers? Like, who's been actually had like the cut like that?
Saturday's Share for Life at Hinds will feature 70 current and former world shearing champions, plus stars from the She Shears movie and several former All Black greats. In Tynwald for the South Today.
New students arriving in Dunedin are being offered a unique introduction to second-hand clothes shopping. One of the city's op shops is featuring a mannequin with a difference, which is attracting the attention of passers-by and encouraging people to buy second-hand.
She's acting like a mannequin, but is anything but static. And she's in the window of Presbyterian Support Otago's shop on St Andrew, who say it's good to recycle instead of buying new.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for recycling, for reusing items, and students are coming here to get all sorts of things from togas through to clothing, through to fancy dress items for parties and things, and we've got a bit of homeware stuff here as well, so plates and saucers and cups and all that sort of thing.
Warren Rosser says they're trying something different around orientation time as new and returning students look to set up flats.
We wanted to do something fun and eye-catching, and we knew that we had a great window space here that lots of people walk past, and so we wanted to kind of capture the attention of the roving public.
And it's a reason which both the Living Mannequin and the shop's team leader agree with.
I've noticed there's been a lot of young ones that are coming in that have already been in uni and are bringing their friends that haven't, so that's a good way. They're all learning the green way.
Yeah, recycling and upcycling, and also to a really valuable cause.
As for Esther Smith, the Living Mannequin, what's it like standing there day after day on display?
I haven't done this particular role before. This is new. It's quite inventive by Shop on Andrew and Family Presbyterian Support, and it's been a real adventure for me.
With Orientation's toga party coming up, there is one item in steady demand.
They're going for $5, and you get a couple of safety pins so that you can make yourself decent.
Esther Smith, the very much alive mannequin, is set to be on display lunchtimes next week. In Dunedin, the South Today.
That's all for Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Sophie Morris. Thanks for joining us.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.